Welcome back, dear friends. This weekend, the former Chief Justice of Pakistan will once again take up the role after a political face-off between President Zardari and former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Mr Sharif indeed defied an order of house arrest to lead a street demonstration called the Long March in support of the former Chief Justice Iftikhar Chowdhury. 10 other judges were involved as well, who were originally sacked by the former president, President Musharraf. President Zardari backed down this week, and he agreed to reinstate the judges and also review a ban he'd imposed on Mr Sharif holding public office. So a good week for Mr Sharif, and I'm joined now, I'm delighted to say, from Lahore by Sartaj Aziz, a foreign minister of Pakistan under Mr Sharif and always one of his closest allies. Starting with the first thing, obviously your man has had a very good week.
Yes, of course, it was a week not just for Mr Sharif, but I think the people of Pakistan and for the rule of law, because very few issues have attracted so much public support as that of independent judiciary, because the circumstances in which Musharraf had dismissed not just Iftikhar Chowdhury but 60 of the top judiciary on 3rd November 2007 was outrageous for everyone, and that is why in the last 2 years this was one of the major issues that has occupied public attention in Pakistan.
Some people say, of course, that your man, Mr Sharif, was using this not so much because of the issue about judges, which he feels strongly about, but purely as a political way of getting at President Zardari.
I don't think that's a fair assessment. The fact is that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif signed a Charter of Democracy in London in May 2006 to forestall and undo many distortions that military rulers impose in Pakistan when they rule and then they frequently go out. They not only destroy and damage the political process and democratic institutions, but also distortions in the constitution. So the Charter of Democracy was the joint document on the basis of which they had agreed to restore democracy. And one of them was, of course, restoration of judiciary. The second was to balance the powers between the president and the parliament, which means the prime minister, because Musharraf had assumed many more powers than a democratic constitution or parliamentary constitution would justify, and Zardari had in fact continued with that. So the second issue on which we were agitating was this 17th Amendment, as it was called, under which Zardari had accumulated all these powers. Because now the struggle is still going on, because the balance of power between the president and the prime minister, in fact the Punjab crisis has not been fully resolved. So while last week was good, the concern and worry about the continuation of the democratic process and working by the rules of the game and strengthening democratic institutions still remains a very large challenge.
That was a very good summary there, very full summary. But tell me, do you think that this situation is one now that Nawaz Sharif can see his way back into the parliament and then back into the leadership of the party and then back as prime minister? Is that route mapped out now, and you think has a sporting chance of success?
Not in the near future. He does not want to destabilize the government at the moment, because a PPP government after Benazir Bhutto is necessary for strengthening the federation. Otherwise, Sindh might feel that people of Punjab don't accept PPP, which is a Sindhi-dominated party, to rule the country. So I think he's more interested in allowing the institutions to get stronger rather than just getting back into power, because that is a more long-term thing to put the democratic pillars of the democratic system in place, so that whenever his chance comes, he can do better.
Yes, because obviously there is another reason in terms of democratic pillars and so on why these two men should try and work together, which is that outside the democratic structure we read all the time about the other threatening forces, the fundamentalist forces and so on, the extreme Islamic parties and so on, that there is a threat to the very existence of democracy as well, isn't there, in Pakistan?
not just democracy, but I think the writ of the state in many parts of Pakistan. And this threat is something that is happening every day in the form of blindbasts, in the form of suicide bombings. I mean, the threat to USA or other countries is a distant one. I don't know, God forbid it, hope it doesn't happen. But in us, it's a reality of every day. And this is something that cannot be solved by military means alone. This is something which requires political consensus. This is something requires concerted combination of development, political involvement of people who should not support the extremists anymore, and at the same time strong action against those extremists who want to resort to violence. And that requires a concerted policy and greater national unity. And I'm glad that in August, the Parliament as a whole unanimously adopted a resolution on this subject, which we also supported and all parties supported. But unfortunately, the follow-up has been very weak. And only when this kind of a will of the people is asserted through the Parliament, the message will go even to the extremists that they cannot play havoc. They have just been playing sort of on the tune that this is an American agenda, and first Musharraf and now Zardari is following that agenda, and the army is killing its own people. So they get a lot of sympathy in the tribal areas from the local population, which is the main thing to win over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aziz, for joining us in great form, great articulate form, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Oscar-winning movie star Jeremy Irons. He's next, after the news headlines.